fear through Killarney. Now I'm back to hitching with a win. But if Mickey Flynn should ever find me, I'll throw me caution all behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a river too, he beat me Sunday through and through, danced a jig over my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, well lucky son still had me life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to the first episode of the newly rebranded Disciples of Ed Talking Flyers Hockey. If you've been following us for a while, we were previously known as Who the Puck is Ryan Dingle. Same show, different name. We figured this one it rolls off the tongue a lot better, it's shorter, it's easier to remember, and it pays homage to Ed Snyder, who quite frankly brought us Flyers hockey. Whether you love him or hate him, the Flyers exist because of him. Anyway, I am your host, Rob. I'm here with Steve. How's it going?
Not too bad. How you doing?
Doing better because the Bruins are not Stanley Cup champions today, thanks to the St. Louis Blues, who
thank God
won it in Game 7 last night by a final score of 4-1, going up to Boston. 5 wins in 7 games for the road team in the Stanley Cup, and the biggest one being last night. St. Louis getting their first Stanley Cup championship in their 52 years of existence. Of course, they had to do it with Braden Shen scoring a goal and Craig Berube being their head coach, because the Flyers were always tortured as fans of them.
Oh, yeah.
It wouldn't happen any other way.
Right. Even Michael Del Zotto got to celebrate.
Even Del Zotto, yes. I forgot he was even still in the National Hockey League.
Right. I thought he was somewhere else out west, but then I saw him on the ice for that celebration. I'm like, wait, is that who I think it is?
Yeah, I know he bounced around from Anaheim and Vancouver and a couple other places. I actually had no idea that he was a member of the Blues organization, but good for him. He's had a pretty fulfilling life, banging a porn star and winning a Stanley Cup, so good for him.
Yeah, good for him.
But as I said, 5 out of the 7 Stanley Cup final games won by the road team. A couple blowouts, Boston winning 7-2 in St. Louis in Game 3, Boston winning 5-1 in St. Louis in Game 4, and the Blues with the 4-1 win. Game 7 up in Boston last night. Steve, what do you think the deal is with the lack of home ice advantage nowadays in the NHL playoffs?
I think it goes to coaching, because when you're the road team, you have the last change, so the home team quit out. Or no, the home team has last change, right?
The home team does have last change, yes.
Yeah. So you can figure out who you want to put against who.
Yeah, I think it has to do with coaching as well. It's just, if you have the home ice advantage, you have the home crowd behind you, you have 20,000 roaring fans, you should have that momentum that you're able to feed off of and go out there and put a good performance and energized performance out there. And Boston just, after the first couple minutes, they had a nice push in the opening 5 minutes or so. After Bennington shut them down, and then St. Louis scored a couple goals in the first period, the Bruins are just kind of dead. Yeah,
that was insane, because St. Louis went 16 minutes without a shot, and then out of nowhere, the Blues just score on one of their 2 good shifts in that period. Kind of just deflates them, deflates the fans, and then momentum's changed.
Well, really, they scored on both of their good shifts, because they had the one goal with 7 seconds remaining. I think the goal with 7 seconds remaining was the most deflating thing ever.
Oh, yeah.
Going into the locker room, you had a chance to go in down by just 1 goal with a little bit of momentum. St. Louis scores that goal. Pietrangelo, the cup-winning goal with 7 seconds remaining in the first period. How much do you think that kind of took the crowd out of the game and took the wind out of Boston's sails?
100%. They still did seem to dominate play, but the fans, without any scoring on any of their big opportunities, Jordan Binnington just shutting them down, it really just, they couldn't get the fans going no matter how well they were playing. It's just Binnington just robbed them of any excitement.
Binnington was incredible last night. That pad save that he made in the third period when it was still a 2-0 game.
That sealed the deal, I think.
Boston scores that goal. They got momentum on their back, and I think they could come back and presumably win the game if they score that goal right there.
I was still even concerned when they made it 4-1 with 2 minutes left.
Yeah, you thought they were going to have a San Jose type rally against Vegas. Yeah, that was scoring that goal with a little bit under 3 minutes left, I think it was.
Yeah.
But Boston's a good team. They can score in a hurry if they're on their game. It wasn't the case last night, fortunately for everyone outside of Boston.
Right, yeah. Definitely.
So Dave Portnoy of Barstool, or somebody on Barstool, they're Boston homers, right? But they went out there, they said that St. Louis might be the worst team ever win the Stanley Cup, which is a scalding hot take because there certainly have been worse teams to win the Stanley Cup.
2006 Carolina.
Absolutely.
No offense to Justin Williamson around Brind'Amour, but still.
Yeah, that was a bad team that won the Stanley Cup. Do you think that the better team won the Stanley Cup this year?
I do, because I look at Boston's team, and though they have players that have probably been there for like 2 years, I still have no idea who they are. Like Sean Corrali, I'm sure he's a fine player, but I look at a name like that, and I see him play, I'm like, who is this guy? And then St. Louis is just so deep down their forwards and even their defensemen. They have guys like Tyler Bozak playing fourth-line center. David Perron, who was such a beast in that game. They have Jay Bouwmeester, led the team in ice time. And Colton Parayko, Carl Gunnarsson, who's still fine. And then, I can't really name that many on the Boston Bruins.
Yeah, it's kind of tough. Boston is kind of like Pittsburgh in that they have, their top line players, and that's a whole bunch of niche guys after that, guys who really aren't all that talented, but they fit the system pretty well.
Yeah.
Whereas St. Louis, from the top down, at least offensively, they've got a lot of names in there. They got Braden Shen, who's really come into his own and fit their system very well. They've got Tarasenko out there, who's a great player. They have a whole bunch of guys Jaden Schwartz, who didn't have a great regular season, but came alive in the postseason and got back to his normal scoring ways.
Yeah, even Alexander Steen, I think, was on the fourth line as well.
Yeah, and he's a guy who he's been around for a little bit. His better days have passed him by, but he's still a pretty decent hockey player.
So he's only like 2 years away, I think, from like a 30-goal season, though.
Yeah, it's he's not far removed from being at the peak of his career.
Yeah.
But yeah, St. Louis, a team that got off to a really slow start and then just got scalding hot in the second half of the season, kind of reminiscent of the 2010 Flyers. Oh, yeah. Except the Flyers,
I didn't think about that.
Yeah, it's...
Shut out the Michael Leighton.
Yeah. Fuck you, Michael Leighton. We're allowed to curse on the show. It's all right. But yeah, I agree that St. Louis was the better hockey team. Boston had the better of the blowouts. I think they actually won the goal differential for the series, but that doesn't tell the whole story.
Yeah, they had the blowout in Game 6, right?
The blowout in Game 6, and then, as I said, Game 3 as well as the 7-2 game. But St. Louis, especially in Games 5 and 7, was able to clamp down so well defensively, and Binnington taking over when he needed to. At the end of the day, they were the better team than Boston was in the series. It's not that they just got lucky or anything like that.
Yeah.
They're the more talented team, and the better team won that series, and they probably could have won it in Game 6. I think that they were feeling themselves a little bit, though, after Game 5, and they just didn't come out with a whole lot of momentum in Game 6, but they got it together, won in Game 7, and it's good for the rest of the hockey world outside of Boston.
It is.
So
even if Craig Berube is an NHL head coach that won the Stanley Cup, even though years ago I said that he's not an NHL head coach.
He is a completely different head coach right now than he was with the Flyers.
He also has a much better team.
He does. That is very true. But we brought up Game 5 and how St. Louis was able to go into Boston and win that game controversially because that tripping call that led to, or that missed tripping call, I should say, that led to the game-winning goal for the Blues. How much of an impact did that missed call have on the series?
Not very much. In that game, yeah, but I don't think it turns the tide of the whole series.
I mean, you could argue that if they make that call, the game is tied after Boston scores their first goal. They go to overtime, or maybe late in regulation, Boston scores the winning goal. They go into St. Louis up 3-2, and then if that game ends the same way, Boston is the Stanley Cup champion.
It does, or St. Louis just powers through and wins Game 6.
Yeah, it's a tough call. I think that it did certainly have an effect on the series, but
if it was like Game 6, then yeah, I would agree, but Game 5 with potential of 2 more games to play. I just don't think one call really changes the whole of a game unless it's like last few like seconds of a third period or in overtime.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm a big fan of the saying you earn your breaks. You earn the breaks that you get. St. Louis definitely got a break there, but they played well enough to put themselves in a position to win the game, even if they did need a break.
Right.
So the better team, as I said, won that series. The call definitely helped them, yes, but I think that they would have won even without it.
It wasn't as substantial as that Sharks-Vegas one.
Yeah, it's not like they got a major power play because of something that happened accidentally, and they had to come back from 3-0 deficit and score 1 million goals in the power play. But continuing on the subject of the Stanley Cup Final, who was the most surprising player for you in a good way for either team?
I would say Alex Pietrangelo, because I knew he was a great defenseman, solid number one, but he just put himself into the whole elite category in his play throughout the whole playoffs, specifically in Game 7. He just dominated. There was maybe like 3 minutes where it wasn't him or Parayko on the ice. And to me, that's insane. That's actually good coaching by Craig Berube, I won't lie.
Yeah, he had a really nice series. He had that great goal, the one with 7 seconds left in the first period, that ended up being the Stanley Cup winning goal, as that was the second goal of the game for St. Louis.
It was a great play by Schwartz to turn it back and then pass it to him, and then Pietrangelo just finished it off with great touches, and it was fantastic.
Really underrated play by Schwartz, too, because you didn't see a whole lot of people talking about the great job that Schwartz did to get him the puck.
Right.
Everybody's talking about a great job by Pietrangelo to go to the backhand and bury it. I think it was glove side.
Yeah, and off the backhand, but everybody else focused on Marchand just leaving the ice.
Yeah. Fucking turd.
Yeah, right. Best picture is his sad face.
Oh man, I love looking at that picture of him crying after the game.
Yeah, right. You already won one, like chill.
Yeah, years ago, but still. But yeah, Pietrangelo definitely had a really nice series. As you said, filled that captaincy role very nicely.
Oh yeah,
and the veteran guy that kind of kept the Blues' heads level after they got blown out a couple times. Big goal in Game 7, the series winner. He certainly had a very good series, but I'm going to go with the rookie netminder, Jordan Binnington, who, by the way, got his first career win, a shutout against our Philadelphia Flyers here at the Wells Fargo Center. I shouldn't say here, we're not at the Wells Fargo Center. Here in Philadelphia. And, of course, us being Flyers fans, we're all giving our team so much shit for getting shut out by a rookie netminder for his first career win. But it turned out that he was doing that to a lot of teams this year. He had a great season and
should make us feel better. Usually it's like a terrible backup. At least we know this guy was just destined to be good.
Yeah, usually it's somebody like a Mike McKenna who gets a spot start once every 3 years and he's like 35 years old and has no future in the league and he comes in and shuts us out. But Jordan Binnington, really good rookie goaltender, which is surprising because he was like 5th on their depth chart, I think, last season.
Yeah, I think so. He just skyrocketed.
Yeah, and then he comes in and has an incredible season, incredible playoffs. Great when the team needed him to be in the Stanley Cup. He had a few hiccups where he didn't play that well in games 3 and 5, or 3 and 6, but
that'll happen though, you know.
Yeah.
Young guy. Even Cam Ward probably had those games in 2006.
Absolutely.
And Binnington looks like a better goalie already.
He absolutely does. Kind of reminiscent of Matt Murray, the run that he went on with the Penguins in his rookie year, except I think Binnington's a way better goalie than Matt Murray is.
He certainly looks it. I still think Matt Murray is a very good goalie, but Binnington looks like he could definitely supplant him. I've been saying it's a Binnington Hart league now.
Let's hope Hart fulfills that end of that obligation there. Okay, we went through our most surprising players. How about the most disappointing players in this series?
From what I saw, I wasn't able to watch the full entirety of every game besides Game 7. But every time I watched, Charlie Coyle just didn't seem noticeable. I'm sure he produced. I haven't looked back at stats, but to me, he just seemed like a guy that was there. So I expect much better from him because I think he's a very good top 6 player. He could play the center, he could play the wing. He's a guy that I kind of wanted the Flyers to trade for. Kind of happy we didn't, now that he's a Stanley Cup loser, and he didn't seem noticeable.
I like Charlie Coyle as a player. I would like to have him on the Flyers, but I didn't watch every single minute of every single game. I think I only watched one game from start to finish, and I watched all the others, in increments. I watched the majority of the game last night, but I didn't see the first period.
You definitely watched more than me of the whole series.
Yeah, I probably did. Charlie Coyle, he had his moments. He had a couple nice scoring chances. I think he might have scored a goal or two. He was not, as he said, that visible out there, though. Definitely didn't have the impact that I thought that he would have. But there's another guy who really sticks out to me, and maybe I missed something, but I believe he only had points in 1 or 2 games of this series, which is really surprising given his status as a star in this league and as a veteran player, and that's Patrice Bergeron.
Yeah.
Patrice Bergeron, going through the box scores, I only saw him have a goal and maybe an assist or 2 in the Game 3 blowout in St. Louis. Maybe he had another assist that I just missed in another one of the games, but he was not filling up the stat sheet the way that I thought that he would have in this series.
Definitely seemed like he played better that year when he had a punctured lung.
Yeah, maybe he needs to be a little bit more injured. But it wasn't just that. It was like a punctured lung and cracked ribs and something with his leg or something, like a torn ACL or something like that.
It was insane, but that's the kind of player he is.
It's crazy. You see hockey players playing through all that stuff, and then a basketball player has a stubbed toe and they're out for a week.
And Ryan O'Reilly had cracked ribs, and it got hurt worse, I think he said, in like Game 5.
I love Ryan O'Reilly.
And yes, I can't believe we didn't trade for him, but that was Ron Hextall just being very prudent with his draft picks.
Fuck you, Hextall.
Still love him. But
love to have Ryan O'Reilly on the Flyers.
Imagine Sean Couturier and Ryan O'Reilly as your top 2 centers going into the playoffs.
Oh my God.
You're winning at least 2 rounds.
Absolutely.
Which was a lot to say for the Flyers.
O'Reilly is another one who I wouldn't say he's a surprising player because I know he's a good player, but he really stepped his game up in the Stanley Cup. And
he's like a prototypical shutdown center to produce, like, kind of, like, he's like Patrice Bergeron, but he's not, I wouldn't say he's on that level yet, but he can be.
I think that he will actually surpass that at some point.
As long as he keeps it up, yeah, he's phenomenal. Everything about him, he hardly even ever takes penalties.
He's a great all-around player. He can score goals when you need him to. He's got the offensive game. He's got the defensive game, which is something that the Flyers, I think, lack from their forwards.
He's got great hand-eye coordination, too.
Really does.
There will be the cross-ice passes, and he's batting them down. The one instance happened in Game 7. It was just phenomenal.
Yeah, just all around a really impressive player, and it's a shame he's not a Philadelphia Flyer.
Right.
But much like St. Louis has Jordan Binnington, the Flyers have Carter Hart, and it's somebody to build around.
The future.
So we're going to introduce a few more. Actually, we're going to introduce 2 of our inter-segment bits here today. The first one being Beers with Briz, and basically we're going to do this, maybe not every episode, but in most episodes, we're going to talk about, Ilya Bryzgalov was one of the most interesting Philadelphia Flyers ever to wear the uniform, and probably one of the most interesting people on the face of the earth, from comments about the outer space and polar bears and the weather in Edmonton, and basically all the wacky shit that he said. It's only game why you have to be mad.
It's only game why you have to be mad.
One of the greatest things I've ever heard in a post-game interview.
It was so honest.
So
it was perfect.
If you were sitting down at a bar with Ilya Bryzgalov, enjoying a few beers, just you and him, talking for maybe an hour or 2, what would you like to discuss with Ilya Bryzgalov?
I got 2 things on the joke side and 1 on the serious.
Let's hear them all.
Joke side is space and aliens.
Space is one of the ones that I was going to go with.
Yeah. And serious side was what was his true opinion of the Flyers beat reporters?
And how do you think that he would answer that?
I'm sure with a lot of laughter and humorous, like, sincerity, like sarcasm, but still true, and it would not be good.
A lot of those goofy ass comments from Briz. I love his analysis of the solar system and outer space. It's just completely mind blowing to me.
Oh yeah.
I love how the fact that maybe it was I think it was in his first or second season with the Flyers, you could talk to Siri on the iPhone and ask who the universe is, who is Mr. Universe, and Siri would tell you Ilya Bryzgalov.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, that was pretty fucking hilarious.
I never knew. I never had an iPhone, but
I had an iPhone way back in the day, but
probably around that time.
Yeah.
So you could just do it every chance you needed to laugh.
Absolutely, yeah. It was pretty funny. I actually took a screenshot of it and I put it on Facebook somewhere. So I could probably dig that up and find it. But yeah, that's definitely 2 good topics to talk about with Ilya Bryzgalov. I would talk to him about the weather in Edmonton because he seemed to be pretty damn opinionated about that.
Was it a Winnipeg? Because it's always snowing there?
I think it was Edmonton because I think it was the same interview where he said why you have to be mad.
Oh, okay.
It was when he was playing for the Ducks.
I'm probably thinking of a different interview where he just said, I don't want to go to Winnipeg.
Well, yeah, it's probably because of the same thing, because of the weather up there, which is funny because he's from Russia and it's cold as shit there, too.
Right?
But, yeah, he was with the Ducks at the time. They played a game up in Edmonton, and he basically said that he would never, ever want to play there because it's too cold and it's always snowing. And they asked, isn't the weather the same over in Russia? And he said, no, it's like 50 degrees warmer in Russia.
Probably where he was living.
Probably, yeah. So I would definitely talk to him about the weather and the fact that there are a lot of bears up in that neck of the woods in Canada, because he has a strange fear of bears, which is...
Don't we all? Yeah.
Yeah.
There was one in Warrington the other day.
Yeah, I think that same bear actually ended up in East Falls by my buddy Ray's house down there.
That's exactly where I saw it on the news.
I made a joke that Ray was feeding the bear. He
probably was.
Yeah, he probably was. But yeah, Ilya Bryzgalov, weather and bears, I think you just get a lot of hilarious responses out of him from that.
Oh, definitely.
So moving on to the NHL draft.
Can I add one more thing to that?
Of course.
It would be a treat to see Ilya Bryzgalov drunk.
Did you ever follow the old account that used to be on Twitter called Not Bryzgoli 30?
Yes, that was phenomenal.
It was phenomenal. It kind of took a dive after he left the team, but there were some hilarious tweets because Bryzgalov, on his actual account, he did weird stuff like using commas and apostrophes and shit like that all over the place where they weren't supposed to be.
I will never forget his tweet, "Ho, ho, ho, I'm Luke. I always have trouble." Luke Shen.
He is hilarious. He is hilarious. But yeah, the parody account, just typing the way that Bryzgalov would type, using the commas and the parentheses and all that kind of stuff in weird spots where it absolutely makes no sense to have them.
It was phenomenal, and at first glance, you would not even realize that it wasn't him.
Yeah, it was pretty funny, and they made fun of stuff like Danny Briere not being old enough to drink. Yeah, it was a good account to follow, and Ilya Bryzgalov, because of how hilariously weird of a person he is, we will have that as a consistent inter-segment bit. Like I said, not every episode, but most episodes we will be able to fit it in there and get some laughs out of it.
Yeah, get some other people's opinions like Shane's and Connor's.
Of course.
Can't wait to hear Connor's.
Of course. Moving on to NHL draft talk now with the draft upcoming. Big news, Peyton Krebs with the Achilles injury. Certainly going to hurt his draft stock a little bit, although word is that he's still probably going to be a top 10 to 15 pick. What does that injury do for you in terms of, would you still go after him?
I'm still definitely intrigued by him, and depending on how the draft goes, I would still take him. But Philip Broberg, the Swede defenseman, he's starting to intrigue me a lot more as I start to get more involved in searching for who we should draft now that the season's finally over. So Krebs is still on there. Broberg and Suzuki looks like he's dropping.
Suzuki does, yes, although I think maybe if more stuff comes out about this injury to Krebs, we could see the stock for all the centers rise a little bit. Krebs dropped from 8 to 10 in the latest NHL.com rankings there.
Oh, really?
Newhook rose, Tomasino rose, Lavoie rose a little bit. Actually, I stand corrected. Lavoie actually dropped from 13 to 20.
Did Moritz Seider drop too? He was another one I was interested in.
Did not see his name there.
He probably dropped far.
Yeah.
It's like 20s, I guess.
I think he did drop a good amount, yes.
Yeah. Probably had a poor World Championships, but when you're 18.
If you're the Flyers and Peyton Krebs is still there, you know that he's not going to make an immediate impact in the NHL, even if he is healthy. So do you say, fuck it, let's draft him anyway?
Depending on the situations outside of it, and I am still a fan of trading the 11th overall pick for the right package. But yeah, I would take him because there's so many other prospects that are ready, that seem to be here now ready, if not this year, next year. So you would have time for him to rehabilitate, get his game, develop. So I don't see too much of a risk in drafting an injured player. So that's why I'm still intrigued by Peyton Krebs.
It would just be the most Philly thing ever to draft an injured player.
Yeah, you got that opinion.
It seems it's mostly with the Sixers, but we've seen it with the other teams. Nolan Patrick with an injury history before the Flyers drafted him, and a couple other guys. Yeah. Carson Wentz with an injury history before the Eagles drafted him. So it's the most Philly thing ever to draft a guy who is injured. But I'm still a Caulfield guy. The latest rankings now have him going at 8, which is 3 picks ahead of the Flyers.
72 goals ain't no joke.
Yeah, he's a good player. He's a really good player, and a lot of rumors swirling that the Blackhawks are actually looking at taking him. I believe they have the 3rd pick in the draft, which I think is a huge reach for a guy who's projected to go now 8th.
Yeah.
I think there's a few other players who would be better picks for Chicago in that spot, and maybe I'm just a little bit of home because I want Caulfield to be a Flyer. But
well, we all have that, so.
If Caulfield does go before the Flyers come up, I would not be opposed to going with Peyton Krebs at the 11 spot if he is still available. What are your thoughts on Caulfield if he is still available at 11?
I would absolutely take him. Like I said, 72 goals ain't no joke, and what we need is a sniper that's not just Travis Konechny, who likes to snipe the post, but he still scores goals.
Yeah, he's really good at picking out that post. I think he found that probably like 30 times this past season.
He'll figure it out. When Michel Therrien is yelling his ass off, he'll finally know to put it slightly to the left or slightly down.
Yeah. Put it just inside the post. You can bank it off the post into the net. It's literally the most perfect shot you can make.
Oh, yeah. Which I saw Philip Broberg hit some in the one highlight I watched of him.
Yeah, Philip Broberg's another intriguing name. If he's available at that 11 spot, the Flyers definitely got to do their due diligence there. And if he's the right guy, I think he could be. I like what he brings to the table. He's got good hands. He can snipe a little bit. He's somebody that the Flyers could really use if Caulfield is not available there. Broberg, definitely another name to take a look at. So we're going to take a look at another inner segment bit that we're introducing this week. It's called the line change. And this one we're also going to feature frequently. We'll interchange it with the other ones. Not on every single episode, but it'll be on most of them. And this is basically anything in the world that you would want to change. What would it be and why? And you can go on for a little bit, expand, and go on for a few minutes talking about what you would want to change.
All right, aliens being public knowledge. Because it's the only way I can see us becoming very close to world peace. Because, we're not defending our country, we're defending our planet. So, with the threat of aliens, we could all converge and actually be somewhat of a peaceful society all around. But that's it.
Aliens. That's something that I never would have thought about in a million years.
I used to smoke a lot of weed.
That also explains why you'd want to talk to Ilya Bryzgalov about aliens. Maybe you could do a little joint venture there.
It's a little bit of foreshadowing there.
You and Ilya Bryzgalov coming forth to bring up the world's awareness of aliens. That would certainly be something that I would pay a lot of money to see.
I would probably be drunk, and then if they are hostile, it's me saving Ilya Bryzgalov's life and dying for the human race.
You know what, though? I feel like Bryzgalov has a lot of hidden knowledge about aliens.
Yeah, me too.
He probably knows a lot about like Area 51 and all that kind of stuff.
I feel like he just watched the conspiracy videos like I did while I was recovering from my surgery.
I would not be surprised to see him end up as some sort of weird, crazy scientist working at Area 51 or some shit like that.
I could see him on Ancient Aliens.
Yeah.
Because that show just got so crazy on the History Channel that, why not just bring in Ilya Bryzgalov?
I know, right? You bring in a lot of marketability by doing that.
Exactly, you just make money. And he doesn't need it, so he'd probably be cheap.
You develop your Russian following as well.
That too.
So if there's one thing that I could change, it would be this bullshit that we're going through right now with the social justice warriors giving us like 7,000 different genders. If you have a dick, you're a dude. If you have a vagina, you're a female. That's it. End of story. Stop trying to fucking change it up on everybody.
I think of it as, hey, you have a penis, then you're a male. You have a vagina, you're a female. If you have both, then you're a hermaphrodite. But if you want to be something else, sure, I don't care. Just don't get offended when I say something.
Exactly. If you look
just
like a dude,
take it in stride.
If you look like a dude and you have like a fucking 5 o'clock shadow, but you're trying to claim yourself as a female, I'm going to call you a dude, and I don't care if you're pissed off about it. I don't care if I hurt your feelings. If you're born a male, I'm going to call you a male. If you're born a female, I'm going to call you a female. And if you don't like it, just fucking deal with it. So that is...
Not totally against it, but...
It's
I kind of defer in a slight different way, but... I'm not just adamant about it.
It's too confusing to me. I just feel weird about guys who are naturally, or people who are naturally born male using female bathrooms and vice versa. It's really strange to me.
I've used a female bathroom before.
Were you drunk?
No, the male's was taken, so I really had to go.
Fair enough. If you have to go,
it was at work.
You gotta go, you gotta go. But yeah, that's my big thing that I would change. So any final thoughts on the Stanley Cup, the state of the Philadelphia Flyers, the draft, anything that you want to throw in before we cap off this episode?
If I was my dream job as a special advisor to the Flyers, I would be telling Philip Myers to be watching Colton Parayko videos and try to emulate it as much as possible because I think he can.
I love Parayko.
Yeah, he's got the size, the skill, and the skating similar to Parayko, and I think he can emulate that and at least be a Parayko light.
I was kind of off the Parayko train last season. I think he had kind of a down year after a great start to his career, but really came back into his own this year, and especially shown through in the playoffs. He is a great defenseman. He's kind of like, he's a right-handed shot, correct?
Yes. Him and Pietrangelo, I think, are right-handed. That's why Bruby's like, I'm going to play 4 because I'm just going to constantly play Pietrangelo and Parayko, even though Jay Bouwmeester led the team in ice time. Well,
Jay Bouwmeester, speaking of a guy who deserved to win a Stanley Cup, played for like a million years and finally got his.
I was so happy for him, and it went without saying to hand him the cup first because he went 12, 14 years in the league or whatever without even making the playoffs.
He spent years down in that shithole playing for Florida.
Yep, and then he went to Calgary.
Yeah. But definitely deserving of winning a Stanley Cup. But going back to Parayko, though, I kind of liken him to a right-handed Chris Pronger. A big guy, heavy slap shot, can quarterback a power play, does a lot of things really well on the defensive side of the ice.
I wouldn't go that far, but I agree with everything else. I just want to go with the Chris Pronger comparison.
Well, I mean, he's a model of Chris Pronger. I'm not saying that he's as good as Chris Pronger, but he models his game the same way.
Okay.
So
that I can agree with.
I like that, and I agree with you that I certainly would love to see Philippe Myers evolve into a Colton Parayko type of player.
I think he can do it.
Hey, you got anything else you want to add in before we cap this thing off?
Not so much. Just don't do that rumored ghost for Andrew Shaw and Paul Byron trade.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a reach there. Yeah. Not a big Shaw guy, not a big Paul Byron guy, not a big ghost guy either, but...
If you want to do Hag for Byron, sure, but the rumor I just mentioned was, I think, shot down, so that's good news.
Yeah, I don't like Ghost, but I wouldn't trade him for a sack of crap.
Well, it's because you realize the Ghost is actually good despite your bias.
Yeah, we'll see about that. Anyway, if you're listening, please follow us on Twitter at ANY Podcast. You can follow our personals. I am at radio_Rob. Steve, where can we find you?
At Schmitty324.
All right, and you can also find our producer here, Shane, at Shane_Mead. And you can follow us on Spotify, on Spreaker, on iTunes, the Always Next Year podcast. Just search us, find us there. Give us ratings, give us reviews. We're looking for that 19th review so you can receive an autographed picture of my beautiful face. You can put it up on your fridge. You can, if you're a hot female, hang it above your bed and dream of me as you fall to sleep at night. Also, if you're into Twitter, please follow me or prioritize it over following Shane. I'm trying to beat him to 1,000 followers.
Here's the thing about that. I have more followers than both of you guys.
Do you really?
Yes.
Holy shit, I did not notice that. It's because you're kind of like relatively quiet.
Wait, no, I don't. I read them wrong. I follow more people than you guys.
I was going to say, man, I thought for sure I was ahead of you there.
All right, hold on. How many do you have?
I have 540.
Okay, I have nowhere near that.
Shane's up in the mid-800s, I believe.
No idea.
I think you are. I think you're like the low to mid-800s. Right. Anyway, please give me a follow. I'm trying to beat Shane to 1,000. And I think that's everything. I think we covered everything. Once again, follow us on Spotify, iTunes, listen to our great shows. Everything we put out is great. Flyers, Sixers, Eagles, Phillies talk. We even have wrestling talk on there now. In the meantime, that is it for the inaugural episode of Disciples of Ed, once again formerly known as Who the Puck is Ryan Dingle. We will talk to you next time here on the Always Next Year podcast.
A fighting man I used to be. revered and feared through Killarney. Now I'm back, hitching with the wind. But if Mickey Flynn should ever find me, I'll throw me caution all behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a river too, he beat me Sunday through and through, danced a jig over my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, well lucky son, still happy life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.
This has been a production of the Always Next Year Podcast Network. You can subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, Spotify, Spreaker, and SoundCloud. Please also remember to rate and review this podcast to validate our members' life choices. We appreciate it. This is AMYP, signing off.